Hi, Todd VanDenburg here with VanDenburg Capital Management and another Uncommon Sense update. So, since last week's report, we had some pretty big news. The Mueller report was released. Well, not actually released. It was given to Attorney General Barr, and he will be in due course determining how much of it can actually be put into the public domain, such that sources and methods and secret and confidential, top secret stuff is not released to the public. But we're not here to talk about the good or the bad or the right or the wrong or woulda, coulda, shoulda. From a financial standpoint, the fact that apparently the report doesn't recommend that any additional charges be filed against anybody currently in the administration, that's sort of a good thing for the markets, because if you could only imagine how much turmoil the markets would be experiencing if a recommendation had been made that the president or someone close to him was going to be have charges filed against them, and that would cause a lot of concern in the markets about okay, well, what's going to happen with the administration? What's going to happen? Who would succeed him if President Trump were found guilty of something? In any case, don't want to go too far down that path. It's actually a good thing that the report appears to say that we don't have people currently sitting in office that are colluding with foreign powers. We can argue about the details, but we don't really have the details. It's important to know that the markets like stability, and that report, when it fully comes out and based upon the summary that is available, it just means that we don't have to be too concerned right now. But the real thing that is actually some information to be shared this week has to do with what's called the yield curve. And the yield curve is when you take like the 10-year Treasury and the 2-year or the 3-month, and you basically look at which one of them is paying a higher yield, a higher rate, and what's the difference. And there's a thing called the yield curve inversion, and that's when short-term rates are higher than long-term rates. And that actually has happened here with the 3-month and the 10-year just recently. And there's a lot of people talking about how, oh my gosh, that's a clear indication of a recession to come. And, we don't really see it that way, not because, a inverted yield curve is an awesome situation. It actually isn't. But what's different today is as the yield curve, the 10-year and the 3-month have inverted, so you can now earn more on a 3-month Treasury than you can on a 10-year, is that we've never really had this condition with interest rates this low. And what's really important to know is that, just a few months ago, the Federal Reserve was talking about interest rates going up a couple of times, maybe even 3 times in 2019. And fairly recently, they've sort of turned around on that and have indicated that they're just going to sit tight for the balance of 2019. So a lot of people that were thinking that rates might be going up, that was an expectation. That sort of drove yields for the last several months. And now that the news is out that yields are not going to be going up, well, the yield curve has inverted, at least from the 10-year and the 3-month. The one that a lot of people also look at is the 10-year and the 2-year. That hasn't inverted yet. But so these yields, rising interest rates and yield curve inversions, they've happened in the past. What I think is also important to note is when you're in an environment where interest rates are rising, does that mean that the markets just by definition are going down, gonna go down? Because as you raise interest rates, that sort of tends to slow down the economy. Well, what this chart's going to show you here is that it's really important where the interest rates are at as they're going up, to see what happens with the market historically. And as this chart clearly shows, that when interest rates are going up in a rising interest rate market where interest rates are below 5%, the markets typically don't suffer. Almost never do the markets suffer, because the markets understand that rates below 5% are, interest rates are still pretty low, money's pretty cheap, and then it's not a weight on the economy. It's not sort of an anchor holding the economy back because monetary policy is tight. So as we hear more about the yield curve inversion, there's a couple of things to just note. One is that if the yield curve inverts, as the 10-year and the 3-month has just done recently, that doesn't mean that a recession is coming tomorrow, next week, next month, or even next year, because these things are not like directly correlated 100% of the time. And then secondarily is if we start to see rates going up again, that doesn't mean that the markets have to suffer, because rates going up when they're incredibly low doesn't mean that the economy is somehow, by definition going to slow down. So just be aware of that as you're hearing stuff about, yield curves and interest rates and the upcoming recession, the thing that's just gonna happen. I mean, we've been hearing about this for 2 years now, and it's sort of time I hope, for some people in the media to start focusing on the actual data in the economy and not sort of these hyperbolic statements that get people concerned and cause much of the volatility in the market that we have been experiencing lately. So that was your update. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give us a like, give us a share. We certainly appreciate it. And I'll be back next week with another Uncommon Sense update. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to be the first to hear of more Uncommon Sense updates like these, please click the subscribe button below. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks again.